They just don't care.
That's what one researcher in Boston says people tend to think about young voters. But data shows that's just not the case.
So we say this like a broken record. It's a case of access and not apathy.
Nouria Hayat is a senior researcher at the Center for Information and Research on Civic Learning and Engagement, aka CIRCLE, at Tufts University in Boston. She says this is the first election year in which all of Gen Z, around 40 million young people, are of age and eligible to vote. And 8 million of them are voting for the first time. This is also a highly diverse group of voters.
Of these 40 million, 45% or so of young people are youth of color.
Data shows young people are issue-centric voters. So, what does Gen Z care about? Well, across the board, they're most concerned with the cost of living. Second are good-paying jobs, and tied for third are concerns about climate change, gun violence, and reproductive rights.
So they're not necessarily loyal to political parties or political candidates or campaigns as much as the older generations were. And so issues really matter. And engaging young people on the issues that they care about really matters too.
Hayat says Gen Zers were first eligible to vote in the 2022 elections, which they did at a higher rate than millennials, Gen Xers, and boomers when they voted for the first time. But she says political campaigns don't do a great job of directly connecting with young voters, leaving a lot of votes on the table.
There's the idea that social media has a lot of influence, so young people might see information from that, but to have a connection to how do these issues matter, how does my voice matter, how does this matter to what I care about my peers and community, yes, direct contact always matters, and multiple times.
In the 2020 presidential election, she says 50% of young people turned out to vote. So what about the other 50%?
And one thing we've known about young people's civic and political engagement is they are highly engaged, but it might not always translate to the ballot box, for instance.
Why is that? Well, young voters polled in 2022 said they didn't have the time or transportation to get to their voting precinct. And some said they had trouble filling out applications. Plus, young people move around a lot and might have trouble keeping their voter registration up to date.
A lot of times the narratives around young people are they just don't care. They do not want to turn up. They did not turn up in numbers that, older generations. And it's less about our responsibility in communities and schools and on how do we support young people to come out.
That's where she says educators, civic leaders, campaigns, and yes, even you, can make a difference.
Having an engaged, informed, equitable voters that understand what are issues at stake is a responsibility of everyone.